Hello, everyone, and welcome to our webinar. I'm Milan, I'm the head of growth at Vivo, and I will be your host for today. Now, our webinar is all about how do you reduce customer support costs within the Forex industry using AI technology. Throughout this webinar, the three key takeaways that I want you to walk away with is first of all, being able to see the AI technology in action. And this is where our product director, John DeGuara, is going to come in and show you the AI virtual agent live in action. Secondly, you're going to understand how the AI can actually help in reducing the customer support costs, but simultaneously improving the customer experience. And lastly, you'll have the opportunity to ask any one of our industry experts that we have on the webinar today any questions which may be specific to your situation or organization. Now, before we get started, let me just take a short moment to introduce who we have on the panel here today. The first and foremost, we have Dr. JJ Gatt, who is the CEO of Ebo.ai. We also have Paris Seba, who is the Channel Territory Manager for Microsoft. We also have Kipros, who is an industry expert within the Forex industry, Andreas from X Valley Technologies, and last but not least, John DeGuara, who is our product director at Ebo. It's really important during this webinar that you walk away with as much value as possible. And in order to ensure we do that, I would highly encourage you to ask as many questions as you can. You're more than welcome to direct them directly to myself within the chat interface or ask them publicly for everyone to see so that we all benefit from the shared thought leadership and questions that we all would like the information on. Without further ado, ladies and gentlemen, let's kick this webinar off by taking the first question to Kipros, an industry expert within the Forex industry. So Kipros, over to you. The first question I have is, you've worked with many Forex industries during your time. Do you see a common pain point throughout their digital transformation?
Hey, Milan, hey, everybody in the chat. Thank you for arranging this call. And Milan, that's actually a great question. We've worked with companies in the Forex industry, and digital transformation is a huge initiative that we see nowadays. One of the main blockers I see, especially for the Forex companies, are actually they are overwhelmed with their everyday today business. Although they are accustomed to being a Forex broker, technology being one of their core benefits, let's say, that they're providing to their customers, when it comes down to innovation and being able to adjust to the evolving technological advancements that we are seeing throughout the last couple of years, being able to adjust and being up to speed to how technology is advancing is always a huge thing that we need to keep in mind, especially for the Forex and financial institutions in general. The regulatory requirements that they need to adapt to are usually another blocker that they face, because being able to adjust and keeping up to date with the regulations, staying regulated and meeting all the regulatory requirements that you need to do, that's one of the things that wastes a lot of their time and keeps them from advancing and being able to invest, let's say, as much in research and development, see where the technology is heading to, and being able to implement it into their existing portfolio of products and services that they provide to their customers.
Brilliant. Thank you for that, Kipros. I would just like to take this opportunity to take the question over to Paris, who's the Territory Channel Manager at Microsoft. Now, Paris, I have an interesting question for you. From the various companies you've worked with within the Forex sector, how do you feel we can support the Forex customer service to continue improving as we go forward into 2021?
Thank you, Milan. Thank you for having me in this webinar to begin with. I will take it a little bit based on Kipros' answer. Indeed, the Forex industry is one of the industries they are investing in technology. Nonetheless, we don't see that we pay too much attention in regards to customer service. There are two main pillars in customer service, and it was obvious in the first video we saw with some statistics that we need to focus in two areas: the effectiveness of using customer service with products like EBOS to be more effective, and also at the same time being able to scale, being able to accept more volume at any given time. So these kind of solutions, there are ways in order for Forex companies to be more profitable, addressing customer needs, and being able to offer this service to more customers.
Thank you. And in the interest of offering this service to more customers, one of the questions that's really interesting, and again, I'd like to take this back to Kipros. Kipros, according to the statistics, we've seen that over 70% of the calls that Forex customer support teams receive are questions related to topics such as transactions and account updates. It's a very, very common theme that we've seen, particularly within the industry. So how do you see automation and contextual data working together to resolve this?
That's quite a statistic, Milan. I mean, imagine 70%, that's more than 2/3 of all the requests that these departments are getting. So being able to automate and minimize this kind of inquiries that we need to spend some time on in order to assist our customers, that will mean more free time for us. Talking about what Paris said as well, AI, and as we see, it is probably one of the biggest blockers we see is fear of AI will replace us. That's not the case. Basically, it's a matter of allocating our time appropriately, making proper use of it, and spending it in a wise, I would say, in a wise context, and providing extra value. Back to your question about the 70%, like you said, these are quite repetitive questions that the customer support is facing. So having a customer asking us, how do I open an account? Why is not my transaction approved? Or how can I push this in a more efficient manner is crucial, but it doesn't necessarily require a real person on the back of that chat in order to address it. In most of the cases, and I guess that's where the 70% comes out of, these are the same questions that require the same answer. It doesn't matter if it's me doing it or if it's Paris doing it. But if you adjust and have an artificial agent or any kind of agent that can understand who the customer is, what they are looking into, and being able to address that in a matter of seconds, that's something we can reallocate our time, stop wasting time on these repetitive questions, and then have our agents improving their efficiency and addressing the real concerns of how do I better improve the relationship of the broker with the customers, how do I provide a better service, and how do I see what the actual customer needs are and how to assist them there.
Yeah, that certainly makes a lot of sense. And in the interest of adopting a technology such as this, perhaps some integrations are required. So from your experience there, Kipros, are you aware of any specific integrations that may be required to implement a technology such as this? And, from your perspective, what are I guess the question is, what would you say are the things that are preventing such integrations from actually being embedded within institutions?
Well, one of my favorite quotes are actually data is king, and Forex brokers, let's say, are kings in this space, because the reason for that being they have an enormous amount of data they are sitting on, but the way it is being utilized is not as efficient, let's say, as it could be. One of the reasons I believe this is taking them back is the fear of the unknown. And like I said, their everyday day-to-day business is not actually following up to where technology is heading, but is actually providing the Forex broker services to their customers. This fear of the unknown, like I said before, AI is not here to replace us. It's here to augment what we are doing, improve our services. And even if, let's say, a virtual agent is not just being able to answer some questions, but is also here to analyze the data we already have available at our disposal, make some informed decisions based on that. And even if it's just giving you the insights, the highlights of who is this guy I'm talking to, what are their trading histories, what are the trends that we see with similar customers of his liking, or what do I need to be careful of depending on the customer. If it's a customer coming from the European Union, for example, I need to be careful about the European regulations. Accordingly, that's something that a person might not be able to adjust in real time. while an agent, if programmed correctly, if it has enough data fed into it, and it's able to adjust, it's able to make sure that on every interaction, and that for me is super important. If we are talking about a 24/7 service, and let's say I'm having a bad day as a support agent, possibly I'm not able to keep up to speed to what's happening at 2-3 o'clock in the morning, as opposed to an agent which will be 24/7. They are able to answer a question within milliseconds, and always being able to perform 100% as to what it knows how to do.
Thank you for sharing that, Kipros. I thought it was really interesting when you talked about the fear of the unknown. And on that note, I would just like to take a question to Andreas. So Andreas, from your experience, what are the challenges that you see that prevent innovative technologies such as AI from being implemented? And from what you've seen, what difference do you believe a technology such as AI can make to Forex companies?
Thank you, Milan. Thanks for the invite. I totally agree with Kipros and what Barry said. Usually is the most important thing is the human factor, the managers and the employees. You have to convince them that their investments, their cost, and the technology will be much needed and much helpful in their daily life, in their complexity, in their effectivity and their productivity. In most scenarios, a virtual assistant will help a company with their daily task, helping customers faster. And in this way, they can assign their employees into more important tasks, and they can help the company more effectively. And as Kipros said, a lot of people are afraid of AI. They will replace them. And it should not be seen like that. It's quite the opposite. It will help them. And also your investment will be much effective. Your return on investment will be very good. And you will be able to recover the money you invested on a virtual assistant very soon. And you will increase your productivity.
Thank you, Andreas. That's really interesting to see. So we've spoken about what AI is. We've spoken about some of the challenges and the pain points that the industry has even got to this day. And we've even spoken what's preventing such technology from being implemented. But what is this technology? What is AI, and how does it fit within the framework of the Forex industry? Well, I think that brings us very, very nicely to our next point, to John De Guara. So John, without further ado, I would like to bring it over to you to see if you can actually demonstrate the AI in action and how it works.
Sure, Milan. Okay, I should be sharing my screen. I hope you're all seeing it.
Yep,
yes.
We can see your screen. Yeah, brilliant.
Excellent. Okay, so basically, the first thing we should pick up is on the AI itself and how we use it. Basically, we're using it in order to make sure we achieve one of the key metrics that are required if you're going to have a conversation, and that is to understand. We're using the NLP and the artificial intelligence in order to make sure that we can hit recognition rates of over 90%. If we plug that in to our flexible product, we can have decent and effective conversations with clients on a daily basis that do not need to be handled by human agents. And that is one of the key things that we are delivering here. So I'm going to just take us through a number of different levels of capabilities that we have built into the product. The first one is the simplest one. It's the FAQs. It's the area that we have already really been discussing. There are a number of repetitive questions that really in 2021, there is no reason for human hands to be handling them. We need to be kind. Human beings are more creative and they are more able than any artificial intelligence. So why would you get them to do the repetitive tasks that the artificial intelligence can actually cater for them? So what are we talking about? We're talking about answering questions on how to register, account validation, what documentation is needed, what services are provided, basic information provision. You could also build in significant guides and how-to-whys. These are the basic FAQs that really we could take off human hands within 10 to 15 days of starting to build a virtual agent. And we could go live with it and add value more or less immediately. So let me start with the first demonstration here. Here I'm just going to give an example of the layered elements and how we can reach that 90% recognition. Number one, Spelling mistakes, thank you. My typing is thoroughly awful, but basically the spell check takes care of that. If you ask, can I use euro? It'll be able to answer that question directly. If you ask a different question, for example, is it possible to use rubles? It will be able to understand the context of that question and respond appropriately. That kind of layered response within artificial intelligence means we can hit those ridiculous recognition rates. I shall hop to something completely different, and it won't trip up the virtual agent at all. I ask about payment methods, and I get the appropriate response because I asked the generic question. If I ask a specific question, can I use PayPal? I will get that response based on that specific question. And it is these kind of elements that mean that, again, we can answer so many of the questions that are being asked. If I ask a completely different question, what assets can I trade with? I'm given a list. Again, if I provide a specific asset, in this case Forex, it will check for me and actually respond in an appropriate manner. And this is a very simple example how we can quickly go into an organization and build a virtual agent that will be able to answer a significant number of questions relatively quickly. Okay, so the next level of if you like, integration or creation of value that we can do with a virtual agent is what we call contextual data. Let's use the information that there is in profiles on a website when someone logs in. When someone logs in, they've given you their mail, they've got their email address in there, and they could have lots of other different kind of information. As soon as we have that kind of information, we can integrate the virtual agent with it and ingest that information into the conversation, adding another level of value. You obviously reduce the amount of information that needs to be collected at that point as well. Even better, if you've got a number, an account number, for example, in that profile information, you can immediately grab it and integrate with a CRM, which is sitting in the back office. That would add even greater value. Let me show a very simple example of how this can add value. The mobile representation on the left is not logged in, while the one on the right is. If I start both of them off, I will ask the same question, which is basically to speak to a human agent. The one on the left obviously has no contextual information. The one on the right does. So the one on the left immediately proceeds to ask for the name and all the various information needed in order to get back to them, while the one on the right is already asking for the kind of elements of information needed in order to get back immediately. The one on the right is concluded, the one on the left is still going. A really simple example, Milan. This is nothing complicated, but we have already shortened a conversation with a customer, reduced frustration, and improved the flow of information through the organization. I've spoken quite quickly, so the poor guy on the left is still actually entering all the information in. Normally it's finished by this stage. But it's a real clear example of how you've saved a minute of time just by using the information that is available in the ecosystem. So that's an example of the use of contextual information. The third layer, so you've got the FAQs, you've got the contextual data. The third layer is integrations. And this is where we can come to all sorts of clever stuff. If we can have access to calendar and these kind of, we can trigger appointment management, actually book appointments. That's one area. We can also check to see account status, payment status, check for update requests. Again, a very simple request, which at the moment requires human intervention. If we have a simple integration with the back office and drag out the status of a payment, we can immediately provide that status update. Again, status of transactions or the account itself. And we can, of course, integrate with third-party KPIs such as Google Maps, should that be of value to the organization. So I'm going to show a simple demonstration now of transaction status. This is actually following the conversation. I'm going to ask quite a long question here. I'm going to ask how long are the processing times if I want to withdraw. There's two elements there that the virtual agent has understood. It has provided the appropriate response, and I've informed it that we're looking towards a bank transfer. It has told me that it takes 3 to 5 working days, and if I would like to know the status of the transaction. Now we have to actually identify the individual. So what do? We trigger via the identity. It could be the identifying element. It could be an email address, a phone number, etc. In this case, it's an email address. And how would you like to be verified? Either by email or by phone. We select phone and fire off a PIN code to the mobile number, which there is registered in that account within the back office. Once the PIN code arrives, eventually, we can use multiple services to do this. You've got that one-time password, which comes in, and you get the status of the withdrawal, which is approved. Very simple interaction with a virtual agent. It takes 30 seconds, and there's no human hands involved. It's a tremendous level of value that you can bring. So how do we integrate? Very quickly, Milan, I'm not going to bore with any technical elements here, but basically it's simple endpoint-based integrations. We use the best practices that are available. EBO does practically all the work once the APIs are exposed. And if there are mature APIs out there, chances are we have already integrated. So it is basically a very quick and simple way of working. Some takeaways quickly from the 10 minutes or so that I've just gone through all this. The virtual agents are intelligent and they understand your client over 90% of the time. Sometimes that's better than human beings. We can deploy an effective virtual agent within, say, 10 days, tackling a number of FAQs. Integration can be a very simple process, and EBO take on the heavy lifting there. Thanks, man.
Brilliant. Thanks for that, John. That was really interesting, particularly seeing how the AI reacts when it knows the customer relative to a totally blank interface. Just before we move on to some of the questions, Paris, I noticed you had your hand raised. Is there anything you would like to quickly add on?
I wanted to add on what Andrea said on the profitability thing, and now with the demo in place, this is even more enhanced. The profitability not only comes from serving more customers, but based on what the previous speaker said, is not losing a customer while waiting. And this is well demonstrated when John did the demo, and also was mentioned in the beginning of with the video. 43%, that's almost half of the people, if they are on a line waiting, we lose them. So the profitability comes also from that side, and it's something with the virtual agent you can address in order to get more profitable.
Brilliant. Thanks for sharing that, Paris. We have had a couple of questions come through either directly to myself and one in the chat, but it's around languages. As you know, many Forex institutions are multi-territory, whether they're operating in Greece, Cyprus, the UK, any country. So on that note, John, what is the language support features look like for EBO, and how does EBO support FX companies that are multi-territory?
It's a really good question, Milan. Yes, I mean, EBO supports a lot of languages. We're looking at 80 languages plus. And if we're looking at the EU languages and some of the larger used Asian languages, it is a very accurate way of working. Actually, using different languages is relatively simple. We just have to translate the discussions into that language and then access the NLP with that for that specific language. We would always make sure that culturally there's the right fit and that the language is correctly translated appropriately, and there would be no misunderstandings based on those kind of elements. But yes, it's a relatively simple process, and artificial intelligence certainly helps there.
Brilliant. Thanks for sharing that, John. I would just like to take this opportunity to now move to JJ, who, as mentioned during the beginning of the webinar, is the CEO of EBO.ai. So JJ, a small question for you. How do you feel customer support in the Forex industry can embrace automation, and how can this improve customer service?
Well, Milan, it's a question in two parts, right? You're first asking about the embracing of automation, and then how we can use that skill to improve customer service. I'd like to tackle these two questions separately because they've got separate and different nuances. Let's start with automation. I believe, Milan, we need to show return on investment on small and quick wins. I think John did a good job of saying that if AI is new to your organization, we could quickly show value. He mentioned, well, within 10 days, within a fortnight or so. You know, larger AI projects in automation typically take a long time to provide the results. But if we have a laser-focused, clear use case, and I believe automation and customer services, so it would be a great start to provide a quick win from a low-hanging fruit. Now, what that also means is that EBO, together with your organization, needs to work hard to define the project objectives really clearly. And that doesn't simply relate to language, but it relates to the tone of voice, the type of customer conversations that the virtual agent should have on your behalf. But smart objectives, clear objectives, also mean determining the return on investments, the savings, right? So Paris spoke about operational cost savings. In many cases, we are able to cut down the cost of the customer service unit by 50 to 60% within just a few weeks. And that is because automation can truly add value. But of course, it's also important to manage the expectations, right? When we talk about adoption. So it's important to have buy-in from the team to realize that this isn't simply a technology tool set, which we are dropping into the organization, but we're changing the culture. We're changing the culture of how the organization works, of how it sees its employee task force, right? And let's talk now about the connection between automation and customer service, right? Which is your second question. Milan, I truly believe that the future of most work processes is going to be AI and human collaboration. AI is not replacing entire roles, but it is automating very key tasks. So customers will not adopt AI as opposed to humans. Customers will adopt a blended service, which is part AI when it is capable of completing a ticket, solving a concern, and partly human. And this is a shift in culture, right? We live in a world where our customers are always on, they're always connected. Speed and immediacy are of essence. Multilinguality is of essence. So if a virtual agent can interpret the intent behind the need of a customer, of a user, of an account, if it can quickly and efficiently provide an answer before any human agent can, then it will be adopted by customers, because we do live in this culture of convenience, in this culture of speed. And in most of our projects, Milan, we do reduce the costs of operations very significantly. We miss 0 conversations from customers, and all the data which is occurring, which the virtual agent is seeing, is filtered back to the company for it to develop better products, to have a better survey, a better feel for what the market needs. And lastly, we consistently score very high satisfaction ratings. In most of our projects, we see average ratios of around 90%, which either like or favorably like our product. And this is across a very high level of languages. So Milan, to conclude, we do embrace automation by quick wins, and the automation of customer service is just that. And we improve the customer service process, particularly because we feed in to this new cultural need of speed, of immediacy, of efficiency, of always on, and of multilinguality.
Brilliant. Thanks for that, JJ. While I have you, if it's okay, I would just like to address one of the questions that we've received from the audience to yourself. They're asking about CRM integrations and whether EBO's technology actually supports Zendesk and Salesforce.
Absolutely. Thank you, Milan. I think it's a very good question. So the answer is yes. One of our key values as a company is interoperability. We want to have an open platform which allows us to connect to any tool which is out there. We win by playing well with others. Now, for all the major CRM vendors where your customer data is typically locked, we probably already have pre-built integrations. Salesforce, Zendesk, Zohop, and other CRM solutions are very common to us, which means that we integrate rapidly and provide value in just a few days.
Brilliant, Judge. And a couple more here, which I believe they're relevant, so I'll ask them directly to yourself. What happens if the client asks a question that is unknown to the AI? What will happen in this case?
Right. So we spoke about this idea of a blended service of AI and human collaboration. One of the things EBO has worked on really well and for a long period of time is detecting the knowledge that the virtual agent has or the frustration on behalf of the customer. When any of these situations occur, we have what's called a handoff procedure, whereby the virtual agent hands over the conversation to a human agent who could then continue resolving the ticket. But the good thing is that that knowledge which the human agent has created by answering the ticket has now gone back into the virtual agent, which basically means that the virtual agent can learn from the interactions that have occurred. Now, as John has just indicated in the slide which he brought up, we call this a silent takeover. And it's a silent takeover because essentially the end user, the customer, doesn't necessarily realize that there's a jolt or a step to go to the human. And every project is configured in such a way that the company can determine when the handover happens. How many retries should a customer do? How quickly and rapidly should we move to a human agent? And even when we do move to a human agent, we have a very strong set of parameters that assist the human agent in providing the response to the customer.
Thank you, JJ, and thank you, John, for sharing that slide. I believe that John has a really, really interesting demonstration that we'll share later on, but in the interest of time, I'd just like to ask the panel a few more questions and then take it to John to produce his demonstration towards the end, where we'll also have the opportunity to answer a few more questions. So on that note, Kypros, I would just like to take a question to you. And the question is, how important is it to have an unbiased approach and meet the regulatory requirements for your Forex clients? And how do you feel automation would help?
All right, thanks for the question, Milan. I think that's a great question, actually, because we're most of the time talking about cutting costs, improving efficiency. I think regulatory is one of the primary benefits that we will get out of this. Because any virtual agent, any artificial intelligence that, like JJ said, is able to adapt, is able to monitor in real time and augment the interactions we have with our customers. Basically, we can think of it this in two ways, and that's what artificial intelligence is taking us. It's not just about answering some questions, but also monitoring and adjusting to the situation. Even if in a situation where you are speaking to a particular customer and the agent is, let's say, moving on to a not so compliant question, and they need to provide an answer on the spot, possibly that's where artificial intelligence could come in handy, raise a big red flag on them, and warn them that be very careful as to how you are handling this situation. We've held other really good keywords which I liked from my from the previous questions, like NLP. NLP is another situation where being able to understand not just the actual question, and that's a huge difference between a traditional chatbot and when we're talking about a virtual agent and artificial intelligence, is not just about getting some of the keywords, but actually getting to know what do they want to ask us? What is the actual meaning behind this question? Is what we are trying to answer a straightforward question, or is there a hidden risk behind it that could potentially put us to risk? And at the end of the day, being able to say that we stay regulated on every single interaction, it's super important, because at the end of the day, it's going to cut on costs. A single violation of any of the regulated of any of the regulations will for sure be of greater cost than adapting some of the newer technologies. And basically, just to go back to one of the points I liked from JJ's comment, is also the fact that being able to adjust to the situation and improving on the interaction through these mixed interaction between the agents and the end customer, as well as the virtual agent, is the fact that at the end of the day, we are saving up on time that we should use as a broker to improve on the relationship, to improve on the services that we are providing, making them feel that we are the trusted advisors that they need, and we are not just a technology company providing a certain platform that you can just trade on. And that, at the end of the day, is going to become a competitive advantage to you. What does Forex Broker A give me that it's better than Forex Broker B? that will improve retention, and they will make them stay with us. It will make them choose the broker from the outset and keep them close to where they believe, close to home, where they have a close relationship, that they're not just here to take my money, but they're actually here to help me do what I need to do, which is trade on whatever kind of trading I want to do.
Brilliant. Thank you for that, Kipros. I think that highlighted some really, really important issues about what the purpose of the AI technology should do for companies within the Forex industry. Andreas, I would just like to pose a quick question for you. So based from what you've heard so far and based from your knowledge of the industry and working with Forex companies, what do you see as some of the future trends of this industry and how AI can be malleable to support this going forward?
Question, Milan. Many users like to find what they are looking quickly and easily, including myself. No waiting, no queues, no calls, no support agents. Searching a knowledge base, FAQs, education material, or videos is a thing of the past. Nowadays, a virtual assistant can assist you right away. It can understand what you are looking for exactly. It can do the work for you most of the times. It can download statements for you or even execute the action you are looking for. It is available 24/7 and it can help in many languages, as we have already mentioned by the question of the audience. It's exactly like the movies. You download your brain, your knowledge down to the virtual assistant with the help of EPO. And then that virtual assistant is available to help all the clients asking the questions, and you can go to sleep, let's say. Who wouldn't like that? It's amazing.
Brilliant. Thank you for that, Andreas. I would just like to now set the framework of the webinar within the context of virtual agents versus chatbots. This is often an area of confusion with many people unfortunately thinking they're the same thing, but they're drastically different. And on that note, I would like to take this conversation back to JJ. So JJ, what is the main differences between a virtual agent and a chatbot? And what does a VA allow Forex companies to do that a chatbot traditionally wouldn't? And how can clients make use of this?
Milan, chatbots are where artificial intelligence was 5 years ago. They are cognitively inferior. They only handle singular questions and answers, and generally are not good at thinking in the same way that human agents do. And the fact is that research shows us, Milan, that 94% of customers in the Forex industry say that they are annoyed by the present communication practices in service and support. So everything that we've been doing so far, including the use of these simple chatbots, has not been sufficient to keep our customers happy. And research shows this. So we have this perfect opportunity to use one of the most important technology creations of the recent years, which is artificial intelligence, to have real conversations between the company and the customer. So businesses need to have personalized, intelligent conversations at scale, right? And this is the point which Paris kicked off with. This is not about increasing the cost and size of your call center with more humans as your business increases or decreases, but it's about having a flexible, elastic service which grows cognitively, intelligently, and scales, right? So this is a major opportunity to develop these deep conversational AI protocols, which create a proactive dialogue. A chatbot is reactive. You ask a question, it provides a single response, right? A virtual agent is proactive. It can predict what the most likely action will be based on a similar cohort of users. It is able to complete interactions with a full integration into the key ERP system. So we're not talking about stopping at customer service, but we're talking about deeply completing a full process automation workflow. So how are virtual agents better than chatbots? Well, in one word, they're better at customer experience. They provide a better customer experience. But let me unpack that, because I know there are some questions from the members of the audience about this. Well, virtual agents are able to accurately identify buying patterns. So by looking at a conversation, a virtual agent is able to determine and lead a customer towards another product, another opportunity, another service which the company is offering. A virtual agent is better at determining what in computer science we call intent, but in this webinar we can simply call the pain point, the real question that the end user has. And if you can understand that, right, you can answer it better, so you could provide a higher level of customer satisfaction, which is what companies want to do. They don't simply want to close the ticket, they want to score a higher level of satisfaction. So how can you do that with a chatbot which has less capability, less intelligence to answer and understand the actual question? Thirdly, a virtual agent can deliver an enhanced service over multiple touch points. So you might want to start conversing with a Forex company on Facebook Messenger and then jump onto a web chat component on the company's website. And then you might want to jump to email and continue the thread. We want a single view of the customer, a single artificial intelligence brain, which utilizes different touch points to serve that customer. And lastly, the speed and the depth of the response with the human handover process. A virtual agent is more capable to understand sentiment. Right? The technical word is sentiment analysis, something which chatbots don't do, right? So virtual agents are capable to understand the content of the conversation and the context of the conversation, that which is not written. And as a result, it's able to serve the human customer far better, thus registering a higher level of customer satisfaction. So finally, Milan, to answer this question, one other area which I think is so interesting in what we do here at EBO is that we believe so much in the capability of the virtual agent's intelligence, is that we only charge for those conversations, those tickets, which we successfully close. If you think of the old chatbot model, it's some sort of, monthly or annual license. We say, no, it's no license model. We believe in what we do. We'll take over the conversations, and only those which we close successfully will we charge you for. What better success metric than that, Milan?
Brilliant. Thank you for that, JJ. I would just now like to take it across to John, who I believe has a few more slides to share with us to set the framework within the AI in a little bit more context. So, John, over to you to share a couple more pieces of information for the audience.
Sure, Milan, thanks. In fact, what I'll do here, I'm just going to give a quick detail on reporting and how we do it. And it links very strongly with the way how JJ was answering that last question, because EBO is not providing a product here. It is not a product that is just brought from off the shelf, sold to the client, and then we move on. We provide a very heavy service layer, and we join with the client in reaching all the goals. And key to that, obviously, is the ability to extract information from the virtual agent in order to monitor performance and make sure that we're hitting the appropriate KPIs. A large number of chatbot and even virtual agent projects will fail because of the complexity behind some of the NLP work, some of the analysis, and the brute force required occasionally to do the work. Everyone is extremely busy after all. At EBO, we believe that we should join with the client and actually deliver the solution together and make sure that the objectives of the project and therefore the ROI is reached together. And that is tied with the promise that JJ made that we are only paid for those conversations which are end-to-end handled by the virtual agent. That is where we see the value being added. So moving on quickly, because I know I promised you I wouldn't be more than a couple of minutes. So this is the basic dashboard that can be used for two reasons. Number one is an executive reporting dashboard, which will highlight the various elements of the virtual agent, how it's doing, what the sentiment is, what the chat ratings are, what the recognition rate is. And that can either be used in a call center in order to monitor, or else it could be used again by an executive management in order to make sure that everything is being performed as appropriate. That's the dashboard. And then this screen, which is a little bit more utilitarian, it is not as fancy, but it's nonetheless extremely important. This is what our internal teams use in order to monitor the performance of the virtual agent and make sure that all the KPIs are being hit. I'll very briefly take you through just to explain the kind of work that is done. We analyze, obviously, the number of interactions which are happening. Are they going up? Are they going down? Where are they happening? Are they happening on Facebook, WhatsApp? Are they happening in Skype, Teams? Which channels are the most used? What is the overall chat rating being given? Which conversations are being rated? What the sentiment score, whether they're positive or negative? Which goals are being reached? And obviously what's very important is which dialogues are the most popular, which are not being utilized and why. We then analyze the exits. So we analyze why people are ending conversations quickly. Or basically, Milan, all this information allows us to monitor and ensure that the virtual agent will actually reach the goals that are set for it. So again, the takeaways, those issues that cannot be handled by a virtual agent are smoothly transferred to a human being that JJ covered earlier in the handover. We can use almost any channel. If it's internally focused, we can use elements such as Skype, Teams, as I mentioned, Slack. Those are all built in. If it's externally focused and you want to reach clients with it, you're looking at Facebook Messenger, WhatsApp, and we're also looking at others ones like Signal now and Telegram. EBO is in this all the way. We are totally here to support the success of the virtual agent, working with the organization, and we work to your business requirements. We have a flexible tool set and we bring it to bear as effectively as possible. Hopefully I stayed within your timeline.
No, that's brilliant, John. Thank you for that. I do have a quick question from the audience, which says, how do you measure the success of a virtual agent such as EBO, and what typically are the KPIs that you measure?
It's a really good question. So let's hit the basic ones. You might have noticed so far, but we're very proud of this tool. We're very proud of the product we're doing. We have to have a recognition rate hitting over 90%. That is a basic one, and that means that we can hold a good conversation. We want the sentiment analysis to be positive, and we want the chat ratings that users physically give also to be positive. And then during the initial workshops that we hold, we can hold up to 3 or as many as needed, but generally by 3 we've got everything we need. We will identify what the goals are of the virtual agent. It could be to register a number of appointments. It could be to answer a number of calls in a specific area. Those will then be agreed, bespoke with the specific client, depending on the business requirements. And then those are monitored as I just showed. The client would then get weekly reports. If there's an issue that is urgent, we contact the client and say, hi, we think we should change this. So that is that ongoing process regarding goal achievement.
Brilliant. Thank you for that, John. I'm just looking through some of the questions that we may have here. You've regarding the AI virtual agent. So typically when we look at tools such as the Facebook, which we integrate with, or Skype that we integrate with, are these simply the entry tools? And then how does the information that goes from the entry tool, such as a conversation that a customer kicks off with Skype or Facebook or whatever it may be, how does that relay into the back end to fit within the central systems?
It's really, thankfully for me, it's relatively simple. You just link up to that account. You're going to create a connection, be it with a mobile number or a WhatsApp business account or a Facebook account. You link up to the account and that creates a channel. And that channel then will allow EBO and the virtual agent we create in order to communicate with the client via that channel. It's a very simple process. Thankfully, the Azure framework with Microsoft provide us with a wide range of channels that we can actually utilize.
Brilliant. JJ, you've got your hand raised.
Yeah, just to add a super quick point on what John explained so well just now, let's not forget the huge advantage that we have when we adopt Facebook Messenger, WhatsApp, and similar tools as a front-end channel, which the customer uses. These tools are used by the largest majority of citizens in the world. So when a Forex company, when a financial services company opens up this channel for service, it's sending a very strong message that we're in the right channels that you use every day, that we're a friendly company which is here for you, and that we are not trying to force you into our understanding of what a ticket or what a support process is. Perhaps come to our website, log in, and is just use whatever app you are most comfortable with. And in most parts of the world, that will be Facebook Messenger or WhatsApp or Kik or Telegram. And all these different input points all hit the same central artificial intelligence model, which itself has the business rules necessary for the automation of these different workflows within the regulatory requirements of the law in each country.
Brilliant. Thank you for that, JJ. Paris, just over to you for a brief point.
Quick point on what the judge said now. Real
Yeah.
story with Kipros that is on the panel as well. A couple of weeks back, I texted him. I sent him a text message, a normal text message because I'm old. And Kipros never replied back. So when I called him, I said, did you see my text message? He was looking into WhatsApp or Messenger to see if I sent it there. So, and this is something that we are seeing generally in the market. Millennials are the biggest bulk of the people of the workforce worldwide. They are not using what we are used to use. So they are using everything that George said, and this is exactly the idea. Who are we serving? Who is the end customer?
Brilliant. No, thank you for that, Paris. That's really interesting. And as a millennial, what I'd like to think of myself as anyway, and myself, that certainly fits within our culture. So that's fantastic. Well, look, for those asking, we do a personalized demonstration. I appreciate there's so much information here. There's so many screenshots you've seen, demonstrations, but we do provide a personalized demonstration for each and every company on the sort of Forex market that has asked for it. So if that is something that you would like, we would be more than happy to do that. And I'll provide the instructions shortly. I would just like to conclude here in the interest of time and saying that, look, at EBO, we're committed to harnessing data. We're committed to improving customer support and customer experience. And lastly, we're committed to using the power of AI to automate the repetitive queries. There's a phenomenal amount of rich content that's been shared throughout the webinar. And what we'll do, we'll put together a quick one-pager that can share actionable steps that you can take to understand how AI can fit within your framework and within your organization. But let's keep this conversation going because there is a lot of questions that are still coming in, and we would love to continue speaking to you guys about how AI can support you. You're more than welcome to email us in at hello.ebo.ai, and we're more than happy to provide a free assessment of your Forex institution within 24 hours. So on that note, I think let's conclude the webinar here. For those who have asked individual questions, we will follow up with you after the webinar and continue speaking. But thank you so much to everyone for joining, and it was great to be here.